Hey guys, it's Lauren Welcher with Central Alabama Voice, and today I'm sitting down with a good friend of mine from the Sylacauga area, and we've known each other for quite some time. It's Jaclynn Traffanstedt. Thank you, Jaclynn.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here with you.
I know, we're so excited. So we're going to talk today about something that you and I both know a lot about, which is the wedding industry. And first off, I kind of want to talk about how we know each other. I kind of came to know you through my mom. My mom has always worked at Coosa Valley, and I've been going up there since I was, knee-high to her, and walking around the floor, checking everybody out, what they're doing. And I'd always see Jaclynn Traffanstedt, and it's funny because my mom would always say, "There's Jaclynn. She has just always got the cutest clothes on. She has always she's just always so done up." And I'm like, forever and ever, I've always known Jaclynn Traffanstedt. And even your name is just like, I've always told my mom, she just even sounds like she's somebody. Jaclynn Traffanstedt. So it's funny, from like little bitty to now, here we are and how we've evolved to sitting down and talking today.
It's a great story, really, that we met in a completely different industry than what I really focus my time on now.
Correct.
But the great thing about it was I forged a lot of relationships in that realm at the hospital and being in the marketing industry that has really served a great purpose for me present day for the wedding and event industry. So I've been able to kind of come full circle and do events for some of the people that I met through the hospital. So it's actually been really great. And I remember seeing you come through the halls and then be there and work there, and our relationship has just kind of continued on through this. So I'm glad we've been able to carry that through multiple facets.
Correct. So also another thing I wanted to talk with you about is how we both kind of got into the wedding industry. My story is kind of funny, and when I go to tell people, they're like, "I never knew that." When I got out of high school, I was this fly by the seat of my pants, and my sister, I was following in her footsteps, and she always had everything just so. She had her 5-year, 10-year, 20-year plan, and I got out of high school and I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. And I even tell people today, and I tell young girls today when I'm doing their makeup, and I'll talk about, what are you going to do, if I'm doing senior portrait makeup.
Right.
I'm like, what are you going to do, when you get out of high school? And they're like, I have no idea. I'm so overwhelmed. And I'm like, that is the biggest decision to make at 18 years old. What am I going to do for the entire rest of my life?
It's hard.
And you're going to dive all this money into this. And who knows if 10, 20, 30 years from now, you're going to still love what you put all this money into.
Sure.
So when I got out, I ended up going to Central Alabama Community College in Childersburg, and I started doing just regular basics, anything that would apply to something, because I don't know. I was like, Mom, I don't know. And I had a academic scholarship, and about halfway through, I told my mom, I'm like, I love doing makeup. I have always loved doing makeup. And so I'm going to go into cosmetology. And so I changed my academic scholarship to a technical scholarship. And they were like, everybody there was like, when you do this, you can't go back. There is no coming back and saying, okay, I don't like this, I want to go back to academic.
Right.
So I said, I'm gonna do this. So I ended up going into cosmetology. I was there with Nan Motley, which I think she's still there.
Probably.
And I just love Miss Nan. But went through the program, learned all about hair, didn't learn a lot about makeup, which I was kind of disappointed by. But I remember every day I went to class, I was so excited. And I was
you look forward to it.
Yes, and that's how I knew. I was like, this is it. And when I got done with the program, and I said, I need to go get my license. I need to go take my boards. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, I just don't really love doing hair. I love the communication from women to women. I love making a woman feel beautiful. But I don't love doing their hair. Hair's just not my thing. I'm that type person. I can throw my makeup on, and I can feel so great about my makeup. My hair's the last thought, throw it up in a bun. So I ended up deciding to not go get my cosmetology license, and I just dived straight into freelance makeup. And I started just literally in front of my mirror every night, taking my makeup off, putting it back on, taking my makeup off, putting it back on. Practice. And Kevin Lanier, which I know you know Kevin.
Love.
So, and Kevin's a local here, or he was. He's not here anymore.
So gifted.
He is the most talented person. But he kind of reached out to me, and it's funny because I was going to try out for America's Next Top Model, and he reached out to me. He's like, I would love to do a shoot with you. This is a big deal. Nobody in this area, has done something like this. And so I did a shoot with him, and I talked with him about what I was doing with makeup, and he picked me up as a freelance makeup artist for him. And that was really my first gig. And from there, it just grew and grew and grew to where I am now. That was 10 years ago.
Wow.
So tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the wedding industry.
Well, it was always a love from the time that I was a young girl that I loved to look at wedding magazines. I loved going to weddings. So, you sort of were expected to have a plan as far as school. And I don't really have a traditional story myself either about school. When I graduated, I had done dual enrollment, so I basically already had my associate's degree almost, so got that at Central Alabama Community College. And then I went to Montevallo for a little while and thought, I don't think I like this. I'm going to work for a while. And just started a full-time job in the insurance industry, still working with people every day, which I found was really my gift. For me, a personal connection with people, forging relationships, just being around people. And I've obviously never had a problem talking or meeting strangers, so I guess that's worked out in my favor. But I decided that I would go to Sanford, and they had a program at night. So I worked full-time every day from 8 to 5. And Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I drove over to Sanford and went to school from 5 to 10 every night for about 18 months until I finished my bachelor's degree. And I really wanted to get that piece of paper in my hand. And thought that I would move on to the next corporate position. And I had been doing weddings on the side for people for several years at that point. Graduated from Sanford, moved on to working in a spa in the marketing role. I've just continued a marketing role for all of my adult career life. So the opportunity presented itself after I left being in the home health industry in marketing, where I met you at the hospital, that I could really do this on a full-time basis. So my husband and I decided that we would go ahead and we bought some tents and tables and chairs and really invested in that. I had already been planning and coordinating at my corporate jobs for Christmas parties, and so I already had great relationships with lots of different caterers, florists, and I thought I could really do this full time. And I had been scared before because I thought, I need to have that Monday through Friday job. But I learned really quickly that the wedding industry is something that's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. And I was able to form my business, JLT Events and Rentals, and just dive right in and start renting out tents and tables and lighting. And we started buying vintage automobiles and renting those out for photo shoots and things of that nature. So I loved it so much, and it just has been able to be a full-time career for me.
And it's funny because I look back at myself when I was young, and I would tell my mom, I'm like, I just don't think I'm meant to do an 8 to 5. And we would all laugh, and we're like, so, like, do you think you're somebody that just gets to do whatever you want? And I'm like, well, no, I just don't. I've always had that creative mind, and I think a lot of people that are in the wedding industry have to have some kind of creative mind, because every bride, every wedding has to be different. Because every bride comes to you and they don't want what Sally Joe had last week. They want a touch of something different. And, I look at some of my childhood and growing up, and I was always that girl. My mom sold Mary Kay. And Mary Kay was like the thing, and it still has held on. I'm kind of shocked at how Mary Kay, I talk to so many people when I'm doing their makeup, and I'm like, what do you typically wear? And they're like, girl, I only wear Mary Kay. I'm like, Mary Kay has stood true. She knows what she's doing. So I started wearing Mary Kay because my mom was selling it, and I was always going in there and I was
playing in the makeup.
And she would always, my mom has always said, you know, you don't ever leave the house without your makeup on. You know, a lady never leaves the house without her makeup on. And she's always said, you know, lipstick is the frosting on the cake. You can't put your makeup on, not put your lipstick on.
Right.
So that stuck with me. And, you know, when I was in high school, I was kind of picked at because I was the girl that got up, you know, at Childersburg we had to wear a uniform.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, this is so drab. So I'd get up every morning and I'd get up early because I always had to have my makeup, my lipstick. You know, I'd have a pop of color on to make my uniform just different. And it's funny how now I look back at those times I'd go home crying. I'm like, Mom, I wear too much makeup. People are making fun of me because I wear too much makeup.
Yeah.
And it's really funny and rewarding that now so many of those girls that kind of picked at me through school, they're the ones calling me to do their wedding makeup.
Right.
I mean, they're like, hey, I need you to do my wedding makeup. You know, I can't have anybody else.
Yeah.
And, you know, God just turns things for His good and for our good. And it's amazing how that works. But so now, of course, I work for Lee Marketing Group, which I love what I do. Yes. I still am able to do this and interact, which is, I know, a true calling for me.
Absolutely.
But then I do freelance on the weekends, so I still do weddings and proms and pageants and things like that. But so another thing I wanted us to touch on is, of course, the 2020 has been the weirdest year of all time. But the pandemic. And how it has affected the wedding industry, because we all know that there have been all over Facebook, whether you know the person or you don't, somebody's canceling their wedding, they're moving it to another date, or we're going to do it, sorry guys, we've decided to just do family. You know, you're seeing a lot of different things. So tell us what you're seeing.
Sure. 2020 has definitely been a year of change for a lot of people. And change is not always bad. So, you know, weddings, we like to say, are the happiest day of your life up until, you know, to that point in your life.
Correct.
So you still want to be able to have your event, whether that's a wedding or a birthday party. But, unfortunately, circumstances being what they are, you've had to sort of be flexible. And with that comes downsizing. So a lot of people had to cancel altogether or completely be open to changing possibly their date, it not be a Saturday anymore, or move it to next year or beyond, or do something more of a destination type style where it could be still have the event but on a smaller scale. And that's one thing that it has given us on a positive note that I see is it has given us more personalization. It's being able to make it more intimate and give you those moments that you can create that are very memorable still. And photography to me is very important for an event. Those are your memories that you get to keep, and I've always stressed to any bride or client that I've worked with how crucial photography is, because those are your memories. So with 2020, a lot of people were still able to have their event, have their wedding, but make it more personal, make it more intimate. And come to find out, that seems to be the direction that we're really headed in, is people scaling back and realizing, well, I really want my closest family and friends. I really want to be able to interact with those people at the reception and remember all those sweet moments and details that maybe perhaps before were on such a grander scale that you didn't really get to have that.
I can remember my wedding day. I was so overwhelmed, and I didn't even have a very big wedding. I mean, mine was, you know, maybe 100 people, maybe a little more. But I just remember looking back the next day when I woke up and I asked my husband, or I asked my mom, was so-and-so there? Because I didn't see her. Right. And she's like, yep, she was there. I talked to her. She said, you looked beautiful. And I'm like, you know, it seems all great and wonderful to make sure that you have everybody on your invitation list. And when you're sending out those invitations, you think, oh, I can't miss so-and-so, I can't miss so-and-so. But I'm with you. Not that I regret anybody that was present at my
Sure.
wedding, but if you were able to have those moments where while people were eating or dancing or talking at your reception, you could walk over and say thank you for coming, or you could walk over and get that nice compliment of I love your dress.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, in these grander scales, you can't, because there's just no way you can go around
Right.
and talk to everyone there.
Yeah. And it's been, for me, I've said consistently throughout the years that I have been doing this, is it's about the marriage and not the money spent on that day. And now with these sort of new set of rules, so to speak, with social distancing and those types of things to adhere to, you know, we found more creative ways to still have the event and still make it memorable.
Yeah, so are y'all doing, I mean, have you seen people that are doing the chairs apart, you know, are they doing, so go into that. Tell us a little bit about that.
A lot of things that we've been able to see is that people are moving from indoor venues or to more open air spaces, whether that be completely outdoors or some type of more a barn or an outdoor venue. A lot of people are going to taking tents to a whole nother level. And draping and lighting have been coming into play a lot more, and really making it an outdoor ballroom, so to speak, in that you can still not blow your budget out of the water, and still come in with an absolutely beautiful, personal, intimate event that is, you know, clearly you.
Yeah.
And not something that, a lot of times these things can mushroom and get way over budget and out of control, and then you walk away feeling like that wasn't you, or that wasn't a good representation of what you wanted it to be.
Correct.
And my job is really to focus on helping you create the vision, but staying within that budget that you know you need to and that you want to, because there's always still something else that comes along, furniture, honeymoon, and whatnot. So, but as far as trends go, seeing a lot of mixed and matched furniture, so to speak, bringing the indoors out, taking some of those beautiful vintage pieces of furniture and setting up lounge areas and cocktail hours and things where people can really be on a more intimate scale.
Yeah.
You can set up small vignettes of around the area. You're not limited to space usually, you know, with an outdoor ceremony or reception, and not just having traditional you know, square or rectangle. Like, you can move outside the box and really do some different things that with different pieces of furniture. We're seeing lots of creative ways to incorporate fun things at the reception, like outdoor games. Seeing a lot of cornhole and these adult-sized Jenga and Connect Four, and really making it more personal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing, that if we can take away from 2020, and you know, we could focus on the negative and the things that didn't happen or couldn't happen the way we originally envisioned them to, but look at the positive side, and we've been able to create it in a different way that turned out to be better.
I agree. I think, you know, we can all get into that. I say it as comparing. You know, you'll look at so-and-so's wedding and you'll say, well, mine wasn't as large as that. But at the end of the day, if it, like you said, getting married, I have the same certificate they had.
Absolutely.
But I didn't spend, you know, $100,000 on my wedding. Not that that's not right. You know, that's great for whoever has the budget to do that. But it's to look back and say, you know, I enjoyed my wedding. I enjoyed having that connection with everybody that was there. And I love the idea about the cornhole and all the Connect Four and stuff, because me and my family, I know me and my husband, we're outdoor people. We want to have people over. We entertain. We do cornhole at our house. And it's almost like you're able to take your normal everyday life and just jazz it up a little bit at a wedding.
Yeah, make it fun. And like you say, we're seeing a lot of things moving away from more formal. Even the day of the week that people get married on, a lot of people are moving away because they've had to, and it's created, you know, that necessity to move away from Saturday weddings and move to Sundays or even days of the week, we're going to start seeing a lot more of brunch style or micro weddings, if you will. That term, really wasn't a thing prior to, within the last year to 18 months or so. And we're seeing a lot of people start to choose that.
Yeah.
Not because they had to, but because they want to. And be able to have that interaction with their guest and with their family. We're seeing it in different areas too. So moving from indoors to more outdoors to create more space and breezy and airy feel to those things. From a food standpoint, we're seeing more food stations or able to do fun things like grazing boards and being able to have lots of different choices and still stay on budget, whether you have, and it be all mixed together and people can move about.
Gotcha.
And it be informal and still fun, and lots of fruits and cheeses and veggies, and like you say, with a micro wedding and more brunch style, then those are foods that you can really jazz up.
Give a lot more room for creativity.
Yes, and with flowers too. A lot of people went into this year. I love florals and the colors and everything, and one option has been dried flowers for people to bring in that sort of realm of the floral industry and do more arrangements that they could keep and put into their home.
Yeah.
And if they did have to change their date, they were not beholding to having flowers that would not keep.
Correct.
So there's other options now that, we really didn't think about, give a lot of credence to prior to all of this.
And it's funny because thinking back too, when we were just talking about the smaller ceremonies, a lot of times, when I'm getting a bride ready, they'll say, if I go to walk down the aisle and my husband doesn't cry, I'm going to turn around and we're going to do it again because I want my husband to cry. But if you think about that, and I think, and it's not necessarily that we want them to cry, we just want that showing of emotion.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I'm the most beautiful woman ever. And I think there's a lot of times that men would actually show more emotion if they weren't in such a grand atmosphere.
Sure.
So if you didn't have 500 guests, if you just had 50 guests, if you just had family there,
sure,
you would probably get a more real reaction from your groom because when you're walking down the aisle, you're not so overwhelmed with everybody that's there, and he's able to act like himself because he's around people he's always around. Correct.
Yeah, I think we are seeing so much more personalization, and I think it really does boil down to people have been able to see that when they were closed off, maybe some this spring, that spending some more quality time with those people was important to them.
Oh, yeah.
And that carried over into special events. And you realize you didn't have to succumb to a social pressure, if you will, of having a grand or over the top or being able to feel the need to compete with this person or that person, that you really could make it about you and it really be a reflection of your values and what's important to you. And then, like you say, walk away with some beautiful memories of whether that be with your grandmother or cousins or whatnot, or really close friends that you knew that you were limited as what you could have, and so the people that were there were truly the most important ones to you.
Correct. So tell me, and we'll both kind of talk on what maybe your favorite part of the day of a wedding would be. I know everybody says the moment the bride walks down the aisle, but for me, I think it would be, when I get to a wedding, or even if I get to do senior portraits or whatever it may be, you get there, and the girl always say this when I talk about what I do with makeup. You get there, and the girl has no makeup on, and she's just kind of, subtle, quiet, solemn, and I'm doing their makeup, and after I get done, that moment, I don't let them see anything until that last final touch. I'll spray the setting spray, and they're like, "Can I finally see?" And when you turn them around and they get that, oh my gosh, moment of I feel so beautiful. And not that makeup is what makes them beautiful.
Right.
They're beautiful before the makeup. The makeup just enhances their
Sure.
beauty. And it's funny because I tell people, they don't realize how beautiful they are, and what makes them even more beautiful is them feeling the beauty. Them feeling that, oh my gosh, I'm something special.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's like the moment for me. What is it for you?
That to me is my favorite thing that I love, and I've been doing this now, I'm almost embarrassed to say, for 20 years. Been handling, coordinating weddings and events, but the most special thing to me, and I don't think it'll ever change for me, is when I'm directing a wedding for a bride. I'm usually, 99 times out of 100, I'm the last person with her before she walks down the aisle. I've sent all the bridal party down, and I can look out and I see all the anticipation of the groom standing there, her mom, sitting there waiting, and whether it's doors or beautiful fabric or whatnot, I'm back there with her and her dad or whoever is walking her down the aisle. And sometimes it has been a bride that has chosen to walk down solo, but I'm the last person with her before she walks down the aisle. I'm the one who fixes the train of her dress. I'm the, and I always say, let's do this. Are you ready? And it's very special to me. It's very sacred to me because it's a sweet moment, and I treasure it. I'm very honored, and I feel like it's a true privilege to have that place and that spot, and that they would remember it. I certainly remember every bride that I've stood with back there and watched her face filled with so much emotion and anticipation, and see her as well as the dad, because they're going through two separate sets of emotions. Or the uncle or the brother or the grandfather, whoever that is, they're feeling lots of things, she's feeling lots of things, and I can see his face down at the end of the aisle right before I close those doors, and it's a sweet moment that I will always treasure. It's almost
like you're seeing a book unfold, It's almost like you're reading the book. I guess it would be, when Twilight was a book and then they made Twilight into a movie. It's almost like you've kind of read the book and you're finally watching the movie unfold.
Yes.
And so that is special. I never thought about that, because you're getting that last bit of because I'm sure there's times that girls are like, I can't do this. I'm so nervous. I don't know what I can. And you're that last bit of you got this.
Yeah.
You can do this.
And sometimes I've been privileged to stand back there and either pray with her or words of encouragement that, this is everything, the moment you have been waiting for, and let's do this.
That's another thing too that I feel like I would love to talk about is how you're able to minister in these moments. So, I truly feel like God gives you so many opportunities. I'm reading a book now that says watch for God. That's all throughout the book, and I've been kind of using that is, if you'll just watch for God, He's so present. And I feel like in what we both do in my, Monday through Friday job with Lee Apparel and Lee Marketing, I have so many opportunities to not just sell a t-shirt, to not just sit down with Jaclynn Traffanstedt and talk about the wedding industry. And on my weekends, not just put some mascara on a bride. We're able to really talk about and minister to people about God. And because if it weren't for Him, you wouldn't have what you have, I wouldn't have what I have. We wouldn't be sitting in this room right now.
Absolutely.
And, we get these opportunities only because, He's gifted them to us. And it's amazing to have those special moments, whether it's at a wedding where you're able to pray with someone before they walk down the aisle, or you're able to talk with somebody about, what you learned at Sunday school while you're putting on some blush. Those moments of being able to thank God and talk about Him and let everybody know that you are who you are because He is who He is.
Absolutely. I think having an arena like this, because to me, weddings, they're a covenant.
Correct.
From God Himself. And I've always been very vocal from the very first meeting that I take with a bride and or the groom and his family, to say, and I think anyone that I've worked with would probably remember this conversation, that I say, it's not about the marriage, it's about the covenant. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not about the wedding, it's about the marriage and the covenant.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter if 400 or 2 people show up. All that matters is the 2 of you and what you're saying to each other in the presence of God.
Correct.
The minister is simply that tool to be able to administer those vows, but what you're saying to each other, is a sacrament.
Okay.
And whether you do communion during your ceremony or any of those other things, or readings or songs, none of that has to be present. That it's such a sacred thing to be able to watch that happen. So any guest there is watching something sacred, in my opinion. And I do love the ability to own my small business, to be, a female business owner, but more so than that is I get to share the love of Jesus Christ with the brides, the family, the bridal party. We always take the opportunity before I ever direct a rehearsal is that we gather everyone around, and we always open with prayer. And I say it's we want to have a good time, guys, but first we set the tone of why we're here and why we're doing this. And I feel like that offers, it recenters everybody to the focus. And then with the bride on her wedding day too, is that even the great thing about prayer is that they don't have to even know that you're praying for them. That so many times I've stood there and been able to just pray over a bride and a groom in their marriage, and that God would lead and guide and direct them for His glory. So that is nice to be able to know that that's something that I can offer outside of that, is to be able to be a voice of calm and to pray with them and pray over them.
Yeah, one of my most special memories of doing makeup, and it actually was outside of the wedding industry, was, and I talk about this story all the time, so anybody that's watching this podcast is going to be like, Lauren, you talk about this story all the time, but I'm going to talk about it again.
Okay.
Because it's an amazing story.
Right.
So I was working for a photographer in Oxford, and it was JRM Photography. I was doing freelance for him. And there was a girl that was getting senior portraits done. And when I got there, before I got there, Jason had let me know that she was born with alopecia. And I thought, how am I going to tackle this? Because my job was to style their hair and to do their makeup. And she didn't have hair. She had a wig. And so when I get there, the whole way there I was very anxious, just overwhelmed. This was going to be a very hard client for me, and I wanted to make sure I did it, everything right. And so I get there and I'm doing her makeup, or when I first get there, let me back up. When I first get there, I'm thinking I'm going to meet this meek and mild and like almost, I don't know why, I just pictured this girl that was just
really shy.
Very shy, just did not feel beautiful. I guess because we think that beauty is hair, beauty is, all the things that we have.
Yeah.
And when I get there, I was so humbled in that moment, and I know it was just God telling me, I made you, Lauren, I made you, and I made her. And y'all are both so beautiful to me. Not that I didn't think she was going to be beautiful, but I thought she wasn't beautiful. But she knew her worth. She knew how beautiful she was. She knew she was created in the image of God. And so in that moment, she taught me so much. And when I did her makeup, I had to make eyebrows. I had to literally make little, hair strokes. And when you went to put on the lashes, there weren't lashes to like go by of where do I actually place these. So it was so rewarding for me that I thought I was going to make this girl feel a little more beautiful, but she already knew how beautiful she was. And so that was so rewarding to me, because that was a moment that God was able to really teach me something. is that there's so many ways for us to, when we look at a beauty pageant, we look at a beauty pageant and you see all these girls, not that they're not all beautiful, but they all kind of look the same. They've all got the big hair, they've all got the lashes, the lip gloss, the tiny waist. And, when we're watching it, we're like, oh God, they're just all so beautiful. But there's so many other people and other versions of beauty. Because God created all of us and none of us look alike.
Right.
We're all beautiful. So that was a really special moment for me to kind of be humbled and learn a little bit more about God.
Sure. I enjoy each wedding and bride that I work with, because taking what you're saying is that I walk away sometimes from those events and I do feel like that God uses those things to teach me more about Him.
Correct.
So I have walked into situations before where I felt like, okay, I've, going to do it this way, and He lets me know really quick.
Yep.
It's not my way, it's His way. Yeah, exactly. So it's been good for me. I feel like I've learned so much along the way. And I think if we open ourselves up to whatever industry that we do find ourselves being a part of, that we are able to learn and not just give of what we have, but able to receive as well.
Correct. I mean, and truly in every, like you said, every industry, every job, every career, there's a moment, there's a time and a way and a talent that everybody holds that God gave you specifically to talk about Him. Ours may be literally talking about Him. There's so many people that I can think of that, and me and my mom talked about this the other day, their way of showing love and showing God is acts of service. So, my mom ended up with COVID, and so she was at home for 14 days, and she lives alone, and so that was very hard for her. And, she had people that were coming by and leaving something on her porch, or, cutting her grass, and she got so overwhelmed one day because she was like, she literally cried because every day that week, somebody had dropped something by her house. Yep. And she said, you don't realize how much people love you until these moments. There's so many ways that people love on us in so many times of need. But it just overwhelmed her with how many people showed love by acts of kindness or acts of service. It kind of goes back to the love languages. We're able to talk with people and say, oh my gosh, you look beautiful, or you've got this, girl. And some people's version of love and showing God's love is acts of service, dropping off a cake, whatever it may be. So it's just interesting working and seeing everything that I see and working in so many different industries, whether it's selling garments or working with CAV and talking with people, interacting, or doing wedding makeup. We're able throughout all aspects of our life to understand why we're put there.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you for sitting down with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be here and talk about what I love to do and why I get to do it. And so it was truly a pleasure for me.
Well, thank you for sitting with us. And this has been Lauren Welcher with CAV and Central Alabama Voice.